We've already started. Okay.
Wonderful. Waiting patiently. Sometimes it's like, when are we going live? We're here.
The pre-live face? Everybody has that pre-live face. It's like,
You're like, oh my God.
is this working?
Has it started? Has it not?
And then as soon as it goes live, everybody goes, hi.
I still remember the Facebook Live we did from your house when I was there for book events. And for
Uh-huh.
some reason, on the interface, we couldn't see who was watching. And the
No,
whole time we thought no one was watching. And then we
I know.
close it. We had like hundreds of comments. And we're like, damn it.
It was so sad. It was so sad. We were not trying to ignore anybody. We
Yeah.
just couldn't. The interface just sucks. Facebook Live interface needs an upgrade.
Yeah. But here we are, YouTube Live.
Here
We're
we are.
here
YouTube is so much
back,
better.
back to answer all your burning dating questions.
Yay, yay. Hope everyone's doing well. We were just talking about dating in our 40s, but there's just so many things that can come up in dating in any decade that you think is unique, which are unique to that decade, but it doesn't mean that things get worse as you get older. Actually, I don't know about you, Julie, I think you would agree, but things get better. Things do.
I think so. Yeah. So, for anyone that hasn't subscribed to our podcast, make sure to do so now. But we will be airing our Dating in Your 40s episode next week. That's when our long form episode comes out. So, we have a great guest that will also contribute to the conversation. Clearly, we're also in our 40s, so we get it. I, though, admit I have not actually dated in my 40s. I met my partner
True.
in
Yeah.
my 37, so like late 30s. It's close, but not fully there. How do you think, like, I wanted to ask you, I mean, obviously we have a full episode, but like, if you were to think about the biggest shifts in your 40s that last time around, what do you think they were?
Being okay with people in their 50s.
Interesting.
This is in every decade that you turn, you think about what's the upper end that I could date. So in your 20s, you're like, oh, I could date someone in their 30s. In your 30s, you're like, I could date someone in their 40s. Some some reason the shift from dating someone in their 40s versus 50s seemed like a big jump for me personally.
Mm.
'Cause you're like
So
50s. That's like back in the day, people were grandparents in their 50s. That's
I
grandparent
could see
age.
it. I could see what you mean. But then you have to come to terms that you're like, I'm also not that far behind. And
Oh,
that's
I
the hard
know.
term. Yeah.
I think that is the hardest shift. My parents live near a retirement community. They don't live in the community, but they certainly have a lot of friends in it. And you just have to be 55 to qualify. I, I'm still like, 10 years behind, but my partner's only 4 years away. And
You
I
guys
tell
could
him
move
this
in
all
soon.
you know what? I've come to terms with it. I'm like, pickleball, tennis every day, sit by the
It's not
pool.
that bad.
I line dancing at night. I'm okay with it.
So we actually wanted to talk about this article that's been circulating in the Wall Street Journal about American women are giving up on marriage. I don't know if
Uh-huh.
any of you have seen it. It's been out for a couple weeks now. And I want to talk about this article more, but I'm curious too, because I think where this really stems from, I still think the headline's a little misleading. Like
Yeah,
there
it's
is a
clickbait.
piece, yeah,
Yeah.
there's a piece around how marriage is declining, but I think the core of the article is that there's this big disconnect between women and men right now. And that women basically feel like they're on a different path and that it's almost like better to stay single because there aren't any good guys out there. And I'm curious, like, before we dive into it, like your take of the older you get. Like, is this
Mhm.
something? Because I feel like in early, I don't know, this is like a long time ago, but even in my 20s, I remember having those conversations. There's no good guys out there. Like, this has been around for a long time. There's clearly new stats that have emerged that we'll get to. But I'm curious, like, do you think dating later on, your expectations shift? Do you think you just have less time for BS and you maybe don't, like aren't as forgiving of your time with people that don't deserve it, therefore you kind of filter out the bad people? Or do you think it's the same?
I'm actually going to answer your question with a question because it's
Okay.
related to a viewer question from Carrot Cake, who says,
Ooh, good
"Hi, I'm an
username.
SF, 39, female. I told a guy friend that I like to meet a guy with high EQ, and he said he
Mm.
should probably move. My dating experiences haven't been great, but is moving really the solution?"
Oh
So
my
this is all
god.
very much related to what we're talking about because there is this perceived gender gap,
Yeah.
and what do we do about it? And actually, in the other podcast that Julie and I were listening to, Diary of a CEO, they were addressing this exact same comment: is when women want a man with high EQ, but then they get the high EQ, they don't know what to do with it. And it's also related to what you were just talking about, Julie. As we age, what are these standards that we have, and
Mm.
how do they change? And I totally understand as I age, I get that, like, oh, I've built this life for myself. I should have really high standards for a partner. But I feel like there's a difference between feeling entitled to that partner versus like building that relationship with someone.
Right.
I think this is where the gender gap is, because at somewhere along this feminist movement, I'm going to offend somebody, but somewhere along this feminist movement, we were told that we were entitled to all these things from men, when the reality is we have to build these relationships together. You can't expect people to appear the way you want them to be. They
Yeah.
don't come out of the box the way that you want them, but a relationship, the best relationships are built together.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely see a lot of perspectives on this topic. That's why it's such an interesting one. I think the first bit is that our expectations of what we want have changed. I think even
Mhm.
from I don't know. Actually, I'm just like thinking back to like when we were in our 20s, the word EQ did not exist. It was not
No.
something that anyone ever said. But I do think like we didn't like the type of behavior that maybe was low EQ. We just didn't have verbiage to put behind it. So I think there was like, it's not like this is like a full new need, but I think it's become a lot more mainstream and there's like wording for it now. And I do think that, it's skills that a lot of us have developed, but maybe not all of us have developed. So when the gap is there, it's there. I will
Mhm.
say that probably women just inherently the way that we are. I mean, there's stats that women buy more self-help books and seek out therapy more. So I think clearly there's like some of that is and it's never going to be all women, but like there's going to be some correlation that we have higher EQ. That being said, I don't think like no guys do. I have seen a lot of men that have high EQ and a lot of men doing the work and going to therapy and all that. So that's where I guess I kind of be like I'm kind of like, are you just seeking out the bad eggs kind of thing? Like not that there aren't any I'm not excusing the bad people, but I also feel like at a certain age, you kind of just like realize like what's important. And if someone's
Mhm.
not measuring up, you're okay like moving on and then finding that person. Because I do believe that there are guys out there that are good, that have high EQ, that know or not even have IQ, high EQ, but are willing to get there too, to your point. Like maybe it's not like fully developed, but like realistically, are any of us fully developed? We're all a work in progress.
And to that point, in this conversation about EQ, is we say we want someone with high EQ, but we don't actually know what that looks like, because we feel like we should ask for that, right? It's been a trend. We want someone with high EQ. And high EQ, to a lot of us, thinks that someone speaks in this therapy speak.
Mm,
And it creates this false intimacy and
yeah.
connection with people when a man does use these therapy words. but they're empty words because they don't back it up with the work that they've done. So we should also, when we want something in a partner, we should think realistically about what that could look like and how that manifests in a relationship. I think when I asked for a high EQ, a man with high EQ back in the day, I really thought it was someone who was like, oh, willing to talk to me and just like speak in this certain language. I didn't realize high EQ means a partner who also creates space for me to speak my needs, to just give me the time and the respect to voice my boundaries and help me work out what I'm trying to say. It's not just what he's saying, but what
Mhm.
is he creating for me?
I'm so glad you said that because I feel like EQ is the new vulnerability, like this
It is.
buzzword that everyone wants, but no one can define. So, okay, the person that wrote in carrot cake, was it
Uh-huh.
that what was the exact word again that they asked if they had yeah, what was the
They
word
want to
again?
meet a guy with high EQ.
And that was what they said to the guy. And the guy
Yeah,
said, then you have
you
to
should
keep
probably move.
looking.
You
Okay.
should probably
Well,
move.
first of all, you should not move. I feel like that is a lame tap out. So one side, it could just be like, this guy isn't for you. Stay where you are. You don't need to leave just because this one guy told you to move. But I think the other side is like, how can next time, maybe it's instead of saying I want someone with high EQ, what does that actually mean to you? And put that
Yeah.
out. I was actually re-listening to an episode that we have coming up in our pipeline. It's actually about friendship, and we had a wonderful expert, Danielle Jackson, that joined us. And this is not even in the context of dating, it's in the context of
Mhm.
friend breakups. But she talks about how we often hide behind this therapy speak. And it's actually
Yes.
less vulnerable because it's not feelings based. And if you think about like breaking up with a friend and then you're using language, it's like, I need to create space, I need to put boundaries. Like, that's all like HR talk. And that feels really freaking crappy, I guess. Like, as a friend instead of like actually being kind of open and honest about like where you're coming from. That doesn't feel like templated language. So I could not agree more that we need to give up this therapy talk. And that's not saying we don't believe in therapy. We absolutely do. But I do think there's the layer behind it is that is where the vulnerability is.
Yes. We have to get so uber specific about what it is that we're looking for in a partner instead of making these blanket statements. And I think in these articles that come up with the gender discrepancy and that women are becoming more of everything. You know, women
Yeah.
are making more money now, we're becoming more educated, we're more emotionally intelligent, and men are being left behind. I think we need to measure this a little differently because we're measuring men based on how we measure women's EQ. And maybe they're just two different languages that we're speaking. But ultimately, if we really want the gender gap to close the gender gap, we have to work together on this.
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm done. I used to be that person who was like, men need to catch up. Men need to do more work. I can't say this enough. We can't keep pointing fingers at one gender or the other and expect there to be change and expect there to be improvement. In order to level up one group of people, we got to level up everybody
Right.
together.
And that doesn't mean like you stand for like the outliers that are sending you like dick
No.
pics and like, clearly no respect at all. I think that's where I think there's a lot more nuance than comes out in some of these conversations because I don't think either one of us is telling you to be like, let me transform someone that has zero skills and like
Yeah.
actually anti skills. If they're like sexist or racist or bigoted, like we're not telling you to like be with those people and, try to like change them. But we're saying like I think we need to think about like the differences we all bring to a relationship and like are there benefits? Like my partner and I are very different in the fact that like I have also nurtured a lot more relationships over these years. And that doesn't mean that he's a bad person with that, but maybe
Mhm.
that's an area that I actually help him with. And I feel like he is very emotionally available and open and has high EQ, but it's because a lot of it we've worked together on as well.
Yeah. Yeah, you built it together. I think it's actually really simple and we're overcomplicating it. The simple part of what we're looking for in a partner is just someone who's available for the conversation,
Yeah.
someone who doesn't run away, someone who will be humble enough and realistic enough to admit, I don't know this area very well.
Yeah.
I'm still under trying to understand it, but I'm willing to learn. That's it. We don't need someone coming out being like, I know boundaries, I know attachment styles, and I know that you are this and I'm this, and this is why we're getting along here and not getting along there. Don't date a therapist. Don't.
Right.
You want
See
to
a
date a
therapist.
partner.
Don't
Go
date
see a therapist. My friend went through this exact same thing. She had been in therapy for so many years, and she ends up meeting this guy who spoke that language. And she was like,
Mm,
yes, this guy did the work. He is on my level. But when things got tough, he ran away right away because he couldn't back up the therapy speak. I'd rather have someone who did not have the language skills around all that therapy talk, but can back up everything with their actions and who is willing to learn and make an effort.
yeah. I want to talk about some other aspects of this as well. But before we do, just like quick breather. So I think there's so much in this that we want to go through. What's really interesting in this article too is that they talk about that it's not just EQ, but it's the growing gender gaps in economic and educational attainment, political
Mhm.
affiliation, and what a family should look like. I think the economic and educational attainment we heard a lot in the Diary of a CEO episode as well, how more and
Mm.
more women are like getting college degrees and getting higher education, and the gender gap is actually like the wage gap is actually for women without children. They are out earning men now. It
Mhm.
changes story once you have children. I'm
Yes.
curious your take on this because I have seen with some of my friends like they have been like they ended up with people that had different education required like levels. And
Mhm.
I think like we hear like, "Oh, I want someone that's my equal," but I'm not sure if that always is the way to judge an equal, but that's the way we've been told for so long.
Yeah, it's our only metric system for such a long time. And now it's we have to redefine what that looks like. And I had a similar conversation with one of our mutual friends who is dating someone who doesn't have a college education, who doesn't have a career, but he does everything around the house. And
Mhm.
she's like, am I okay with this? And my thought was like, I can't speak for her, but I
Yeah.
feel like we need to define what our roles are in that relationship. And if the roles are clearly defined and everybody upholds their responsibilities, I think that's it doesn't matter what their education is or how much they're bringing in. As long as they're fulfilling their responsibilities. I think we're just looking at the wrong qualities. Like a good education doesn't necessarily equate to a good partner.
Right.
Making a lot of money doesn't necessarily equate to being a good partner. So what makes a good partner? And then we work backwards from there.
Right. I think there's always going to be something with everyone, right? And
Yeah.
I think you need to, again, it's like, how do you see what strengths someone brings instead of like what they're lacking all the time? And then how do those strengths play in with your strengths? I don't know. I think this is like one of those things that also like it comes back to like what the value is. Like if you want someone that you have like intellectual connection with, does that mean that they had to have this does that mean they have to have the same exact level of education as you? Maybe it does,
Yeah.
maybe it doesn't. Like I think that
Yeah.
you need to expand out what that definition means for you. And I'm not going to say like, I don't know, I think everyone has like their one thing they're not going to budge on. So I'm never going to tell someone like they should never date someone that like they feel like, is at a like I don't know, like if college education is a deal breaker for you, fine. Like we're not going to say like
Mhm.
don't, but I think it's like how do you think about this like a little more holistically and like what actually matters to you?
It's such an interesting time because we haven't seen this in the past. And for me, it's a matter of respect. Could I
Yeah.
respect this person if X, Y, and Z happens? Or they don't have this thing that I used to want a partner to have. And even looking at our girlfriends, Julie, I would say most of our and my girlfriends dated or married men who moved into their houses that they owned, who out earned their husbands, or at least at some equal playing field of education and pay. And I would say half my girlfriends respect their partners and half of them don't. That's how it is. And I think it really depends on what the men also contribute to the relationship. The ones where there's mutual respect is where there are responsibility there are true responsibilities being fulfilled in each direction. But where there is no respect is that both people haven't communicated what they expect from the other person. And then it's just a lot of disappointment both ways.
Yeah. I would argue though that even if someone had all the criteria, that probably would still exist.
Yeah. Yeah. True. True. But if
What
they had
about
all the criteria, I guess you just like have to it's harder to point your fingers at something, right? Like, it's harder to
maybe?
blame it on something.
I mean, I still feel like this comes down to list based dating that we talk about a lot in our book, too, of how we are always looking for this aspirational version of ourselves. And I do blame dating apps a little for this. I'm very pro dating apps, but I think it
Mhm,
has made us feel like we have these infinite options and we can create this checklist of all the things that we deem important, like we're shopping for someone on Amazon. And
mhm.
I think with the list based qualities, we tend to over exaggerate what we have in the first place, too. Like, I've heard people be like, yeah, like I ran a marathon like 10 years ago. Like, I need someone that runs. And it's like, do you? Is that really something that's super important to you? It's almost like I feel like if I've been single for so long, I need the best person ever. And there is a
Yeah,
point of diminishing returns on that. And I'm not, like, saying that we should, again, tolerate bad behavior, but it really comes down to, like, what are we measuring against? I feel like our metrics are not accurate. Like, in that Diary of a CEO episode, there was a stat around, like, how if, like, women heard that they were only gonna get 80% of what they were looking for, that would feel like a
mhm.
disappointment, where
Right.
they actually said that men, on the other hand, they said 80% is amazing. I don't know.
Yeah.
Who knows? We could debate that one all day long, but I think the point of it being of like 80% feels bad. I feel like the end of the day, like you're never going to find someone that has like every last thing that you deemed essential. And maybe that's actually a good thing because it leaves room to discover new stuff about someone.
Here's where I'm going to call out our women, and don't worry, I'm gonna call out men later too, so it's, equal equal quality calling out, or equal whatever it's called. Equal playing field here. For all of our women, the stat is women are matching with 20% of men on dating apps.
Yes.
And for the rest of the 80% of men on dating apps are getting ignored. In fact, it takes them
Zero.
two
Yeah.
200 swipes to get to one match. I think we women should take some responsibility in the way that we complain about dating apps is because we're sort of fucking it up. We're all going after the same 20% of men. And that's why we feel like there are no good men out there. Yeah,
Right.
because there's only 20% that we're going after, and it's usually based on height,
Yep.
right?
Superficial stuff. Yes. Good
Superficial
profile
qualities.
photos. Yeah.
Yes, and maybe their career, their
Hmm.
jobs. And so we need to take some responsibility and expand out out of this list-based dating and these qualities and stop ignoring the 80% of men who could very well be wonderful partners for us. But what this is also creating is the 20% of men are getting all of the women,
Huge
so then they
egos.
don't
Yeah.
decide. Huge egos, commitment phobes, can't make a decision, and of course they're going to ghost, they're going to play, they're going to breadcrumb, they're going to do all the roaching, all the terrible words for bad dating behavior out there. They're going to do it all, of course, because they get their pick of
Right.
all the women on the apps.
Right. I mean, UA and I have met so many incredible men that we are going to guess fall into the 80% because we've heard their stories. And I'm
Yeah.
like, why are these people getting overlooked? They have the emotional intelligence, they have these qualities, maybe that they're under a certain height or whatever it is. That's why we really need to rethink like what it is that makes someone a good partner. And we've talked about this before like on dating apps like we put so much emphasis on this profile that really is not reflective at all of who someone
Yeah.
even is. How many times have you showed up on a date and someone looks so much different than their profile for better or for worse?
All the time.
All the time. And I think there's also stats how like women really take inventory of the profile and men don't. And I think this is actually an area for both people to kind of level up a little. I think part of what fuels that there's no good guys out there is clearly like some of it's like who we're looking at on apps. And guys, of course, like if you have like, like there's certain things that like we know are no brainers that women don't like bathroom selfies, shirt off, like things that you
Yeah.
might think are hot, they aren't. So leveling up and learning like what women like in a profile, maybe that's step one, or also filling out your profile a little more, knowing that women actually look at it. Women on the other side, maybe it's not putting as much weight onto the profile because the reality is men are not sitting around taking photos all the time with their friends or on
No.
vacation or wherever they go, and they don't have good pictures. And it's not
No.
always reflective of who they are. I feel like my fiance, his profile was, I don't know, C plus, not
Wow, you
bad.
graded it.
Not bad, but, like, I don't know if I, like, really deep dive analyzed it, I'm sure I could
Yeah.
have found some reason not to go. My, like, ex before him that I met on Hinge, also probably around the same. They were good enough, but I went, and in person, they were incredible, and I would have just missed out if I had been putting all that weight on the profile.
I do think men do have a tendency to swipe with rose-colored glasses than women. Like women have the filter off
Yes.
when they're swiping, and men have lots of filters on. Because I've compared a guy friend and a girlfriend of mine. For my girlfriend, we were looking through pictures, and she's just like scrutinizing every
Yeah.
little thing. Like, is that a pinky ring he's wearing, or is, is his left eye bigger than his right eye? Like, super scrutinizing it. And then my guy friend shows me profiles of these women clearly with filters on, like
Yeah.
clearly. And they're like, she is gorgeous. Look at her. She is so perfect. She is like my dream girl. Yeah, like they're two extremes. That's why they're not matching.
That's where the 80/20 is, and it's so frustrating for both parties too. Because think about, like, if you're always swiping on everyone and no one's swiping back on you, you get
Yeah.
disgruntled, you get frustrated. I'm not excusing this guy that told our listener earlier to move to a different location, but, like, what if he's gotten, like, 10 messages from girls asking if he has high emotional intelligence, and he feels like he's just being put through tests. He's probably getting really disgruntled and frustrated and just over it. And I don't think that's really serving anyone.
It's not. So the call out for men, okay, so the call out for women is let's just expand our filters on dating apps and be more open to dating outside of your list or your
Also,
usual
not
type.
using the therapy talk. Instead of asking if
Yes.
someone has EQ. Also, what does that actually get you? Like, Of Most people are just gonna be like, "Of course I have high EQ." It's like asking if someone's funny. Like, why what like, you need to just see if they are or not. So, I feel
Right.
like asking these types of questions, show not tell, like, that is so much better. Like, actually having and again, it's like dater view, like, no one wants to feel like they're being grilled before you even go on a date of, like, the list of qualities you think that they should
Yeah.
have.
Yes. And I think this comes from, and I was guilty of this hate men mentality. It's so prevalent now.
It's so prevalent.
There's so many women who absolutely hate men. And for a while, I was like, oh, women are quitting men. I thought it was kind of funny, but it's actually true. Women are quitting men legitimately. Like, I don't want to deal with them. They suck, hate them all. That's not going to help us. That's not going to help anybody who's trying to date or want to be in a relationship. So, can we create more compassion in ourselves to give the 80% a chance? But the call out for men is you can't hate women either, and you can't be petty about what you see happening. Like, the fact that I had a guy not hold a door open for me because he said, "We make the same amount of money, you can hold your own fucking door." That's not a way to approach this either. We can't
Yeah.
Men, you can't be petty about women's progress. We have to talk about like, we have to celebrate women at the same time, and you can't hate on us because that's not gonna progress anybody forward. It's just gonna create more of this divide between the 2 genders.
I also feel like for men too, understanding where this is coming from and why it's important for women, emotional safety is more important
Yeah.
than other aspects. Like at one of our book events, that actually it was one I did solo, the talk. It was like a
Mhm.
2-minute lightning talk. And a guy came up to me at the end and he said something along the lines of, "I think the reason I keep getting rejected is because I don't have a six pack." I'm not kidding. And I'm like, "I don't think that's the reason." And I didn't
Mhm.
want to say it because like I can't, but he gave off not safe vibes to me. Like I felt like
Mhm.
I wanted to leave the conversation. And that to me is why he's getting rejected, not because he doesn't have a six pack or he can't like bench a certain amount of weights. Or if like that's the girl you're going for, like stay in that lane. But what you're
Mm.
seeing here is most women today don't necessarily want that. They want someone that's an emotionally intelligent and safe partner. So, men, like, how do you continue to build these skills and also show them to women? But also women be receptive to the men that are doing it because yes, I don't want to generalize. There's a whole country, there's a lot of political divides, all of that. That's like another whole conversation for another day. But I also do see a subset of men that have been stepping it up in the last couple years. They are doing more housework, like they are being more equal partners. I see my friends, significant others that are dads that are so involved. And I think we need to
Mhm.
also like give those men credit too for stepping up a bit. It's not like
Yes.
every single man out there is this terrible human being. And I feel like if you are trying to date men, having that mentality, like why would anyone want to date you if that's the mentality? I
Yeah.
would rather be like, okay, I have a high standard of men, and if someone's not going to show me a good thing, I'm going to move on to find someone that will. That's a
Yeah.
good way to like lean into having that standard.
Yeah, it's a very complex discussion, one that we can't tackle in 30, 45 minutes. Like, this is like a week-long discussion with both parties present, because I understand there's so much mental load for women
Yeah.
across everything. We are just fucking tired. Right? Can we all be honest here? Like, I know there are so many women listening to this being like, okay, I have to work. I have to take care of household duties. I have
Yeah.
to bear children. And I have to now create space for men and be compassionate and then uh, open up my filters. I have to do everything. Like, women are thinking, like, do I have to do everything and still be in therapy and still
Yeah.
be emotionally intelligent? All of it, and I get it. It's very tiring to think that we have to do all the work. I think at this point, we have to know how to delegate some work to men. It's not just household work. but like, let's not take all of this on. We know we can, we've proven it. But can we like involve men in some of this too? Like, can you take on some of this work? Can you
Yeah.
also be responsible for this? We just haven't even asked. We just assume they won't do it.
I don't know, or you're in a partnership where they do, like I'm in. I don't really have this problem because I feel like
Yeah.
this is something that we've been able to carve out as a team. And I'm not saying like I'm this lucky person. I believe it's out there. I see this with a lot of my friends that aren't taking on all
Yeah.
this stuff. It's what you choose to do and create with someone. There may be areas that I'm stronger and my partner is weaker and vice versa. But I think if you're only paying attention to your strengths, you're also like missing some of the emotional uh, intelligence of knowing that you're not perfect either. And I think like
Yeah.
looking at it holistically of like how are we a team? How do we complement each other? How do we work together? Like that's where the real magic of partnership happens. And I think now this time in our lives, we're actually having the best partnerships possible if we choose to look at it that way.
Yes. Because you can build it together. You build it. That's the magic.
It's the
That's
getting
the
out of
secret
this me
solution.
versus you mentality. I
I
think
know.
it's not beneficial for anyone.
It really isn't. It feels unfair for everybody involved, right? You talk to anybody right now, it just feels unfair. The
Yeah.
world feels unfair. Well, we can make it feel better if we can build that with somebody. You don't need to move, you don't need to get off the apps, you don't need to start going to a run club. Like there is no secret path to finding love. The only secret path is you find someone who's willing to build it with you.
I think step one is just defining emotional intelligence and what that means to you, recognizing the areas that you really got it down. And maybe there's areas that you don't. And looking when you meet people that aren't necessarily a carbon copy of yourself, maybe you'd be
Yeah.
surprised that they actually are emotionally intelligent in different ways. I think that is really the number one takeaway from this is how do we start to expand that definition or not even expand it, but just define it because I feel like I would love to sit with that because I'm not sure if I could even define it right this second on the spot.
No, no, me neither. Yeah, we say it because we feel like we should say it,
Yeah, it's
but we don't
vulnerability.
actually know what it means.
Vulnerability 2.0. Yeah.
Yeah, there we go. Good
Okay.
discussion. We got a lot in.
We did. Love these meaty topics. Hope everyone else enjoys it. Let us know what you think too. Like, definitely feel free to write us. This is something that's longer than like a comment here or there, or, comment on Spotify or YouTube if you're listening. We would love to engage and have a conversation. It's okay if you don't agree with everything we said either. I think let's bring all perspectives, but let's try to keep like the man hating, women bashing out
Yeah,
of it. It's just not
yeah.
productive for any of us.
You know what is productive though? Our book, How to Be Dateable. If you want to know how to get productive at dating and actually find things that move the needle
Yeah.
so you don't feel burnt out or petty or disgruntled in dating, go to howtobedateable.com where you can get the book, the hardcover, and download the audiobook.
Yeah. Instead of having these conversations, you're like, nope, not going to stand for it. Moving on.
Yes. Move above it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Don't move out of your city. Just move
Yes.
above the conversation.
Don't
There
give
you go,
up
carrot
on
cake.
men. If you're trying to date men, don't give up on men. But also, like, recognize when a guy isn't stepping up and have,
Yeah.
like, hope and confidence that there is someone out there that will.
Yes. They're out there.
They are out there. We have proof. We know a lot of them.
Yes. All right. That wraps up this conversation. We'll see you all next week.
Bye.